You know what we don't have anymore?
What?
A cool intro. We don't have a thing at the beginning of our episodes.
Didn't we decide that that was dumb? That we just didn't need that?
Yeah, but I almost feel like not having one is also dumb. So I'm not really sure what to do.
So just the first few seconds are dumb. There's no way around it.
Agreed. But how about just for old time's sake? What are you drinking?
I don't know.
Some kind of whiskey? I'm drinking wine from a Dunkin' Donuts coffee mug. So that's where I'm at.
It's not Dunkin' Donuts wine. It's just in a Dunkin' Donuts mug.
Right. Right. It's normal wine in a Dunkin' Donuts mug. Okay. Last week, we sort of pitched this idea of a very simple idea of just changing up your environment a little bit. Do something you normally do in one place in a different place. See what happens.
Yeah.
Start thinking about your environment. Is it important? Did it really change anything? Just start thinking about it. How important is your environment to what you do and how you feel?
So, what did you do?
I honestly didn't do much. I realized that the amount of things that I can actually change into a different place are very limited. But okay, so recently I've been, getting up at 5:30 a.m. Every morning. And then I've just been writing for like half an hour or so. And usually I do that in my other chair in my room. This week I did it in a different room in my house.
Okay.
And then a couple days I did it outside. So that was nice. And I think I did a couple other things, but that's the gist of it. I did things in a different room.
Okay. So you, at the very least, you started paying attention to the environment. That's cool. My intention was to bike out to the river and try to do work like at the waterfront, but the weather kind of sucked this week. So I haven't done that, although I still want to. But I decided to hook up my VR headset and do some software development in virtual reality. I thought that would be
That's
kind
way
of
cooler than what I did.
I know. I was hoping to, win the competition of cool thing we did this week. So it was actually pretty interesting, and it did exactly what we'd hoped, which is got me thinking a lot about environments and what they do. So what I did was I have the VR headset on. It was actually a pain to set up. Things aren't quite there yet in terms of really working in VR, so it was kind of experimental. But I'm in this virtual space in a mountain range, and I open up a terminal or terminal emulator in this big kind of window that floats in front of me, and then it's awkward because I have to use the VR controllers to manipulate stuff and build my little environment, and then I have to set them down and then grab my keyboard and start typing. So there's a couple things it did that I think are interesting, and it started to formulate this idea, or almost model, I guess, of what I want from the environments that I'm in. So the first thing that you notice right away when you're working on this window inside of this virtual reality environment is that you cannot get distracted. It's not that it just isn't distracting, it's that you have this thing physically strapped to your head. If you wanted to pick up your phone, you cannot. And in theory, you could open a browser window, but the way this was set up, mostly because it was so clunky, I couldn't do that. So I'm literally locked into just this window, and I can look around at the mountain range, but that's it. So it actually created an environment that was a little bit similar to what we were describing with the phone experiment, where you don't have your phone with you while you're, say, reading a book. And at first, you kind of have that feeling of, I really want to put my mind on something else. I don't want to sit here and only read this book. But after a while, you settle into doing that. It created that with the computer, where I'm working on some code and I kind of get bored. I want to get distracted, but I physically cannot do anything else unless I, pull everything off and get out of it. So it emulated that environment pretty well, where it's just does not allow you to become distracted. And that was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. One thing I started doing was thinking about just analyzing the environment that I was already in.
Yeah.
So at my office at work, I started, and I don't want to mention the super top secret thing, right? We're not ready to mention that yet.
No. Nope.
Okay, we're not going to talk about that. Okay, but a different time. But what I can say that I started doing was I started writing down every little distraction that came up. Every single distraction that I noticed, I would write it down, which was a little time consuming, but also very informative.
Mm-hmm.
And instantly, I start coming up with this huge list of things that are distracting me with that I've never really considered distractions before. But when you're looking for real distractions, all of a sudden they become really apparent. And I start writing down, people talking, people standing behind me, people rolling around in their chairs, high heels walking across the office, just like all sorts of things. Someone's computer music is playing too loud. Just I come up with this huge list, and then I started doing that while I work from home, and I have a lot of trouble making a list at all because it's so quiet and peaceful and wonderful, and I'm able to get a lot of work done. And so it was interesting to sort of compare the two environments and see what profound effect they have on me. So that's one thing I started doing.
Yeah, my experience was a bit similar in that, I'm used to working at my PC, and I have multiple monitors and this really powerful machine, and it's set up to be really easy for me to switch from one thing to another and all kinds of stuff. And then I put on the VR headset, and again, because it's so difficult to actually launch something inside of this VR environment, I'm pretty much locked into one thing, and it makes me realize, wow, this is really different. Like the amount of distractions and things that are available to me is just night and day compared to my normal working environment. And I don't really want to work in VR forever because it's too uncomfortable over time. But it made me reflect on, holy crap, my normal working environment is so distracting. And there's something that you said a while back. I forget what we were even talking about, but you had said something about how you're kind of wired to see and process distractions. Like if a guy with a gun walks in your room, you're supposed to notice. You're built that way. It's kind of presumably a survival thing, where if something new happens, your mind is built to see it and process it. Basically, what I mean is that if something comes up, like if a notification pops up on your desktop, it will distract you. It's not a matter of willpower. It's not a matter of anything. If that happens, it will pull your attention away. If I'm sitting on the sidewalk working on my laptop and somebody walks past, like I'm gonna look at them. Like they're gonna enter my vision, and my brain is gonna say, are they gonna murder you or not? They're not. Okay, cool. Well, we can go back to what we're doing. Like anything that presents itself to you is going to pull your attention away to it. That's just how we're built.
Yeah. And while I was listing out all of these different distractions at the office, I noticed that most of them were just sort of my brain processing it. Like if someone is having a conversation as they walk by me, my brain pays attention to it and then lets it go, and I'm right back to work. If someone's standing behind me, it bothers me more. Like it really starts to, God, I hate it. When they just stand there and talk to someone else or look at what I'm doing, it really bothers me. But as soon as they walk away, I'm good again. Mm-hmm. The worst type of distraction is when someone comes over and starts talking to me. Even if they only say a couple things, it's like it just totally breaks any focus I had, and I have to spend a lot of time recovering from that. So it was interesting to start seeing these different levels of distractions. And our brains are always searching to process those things that happen, and some of them are more of a threat or just more intense than others.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, one thing I noticed too, okay, again, we're not going to talk about the secret project, but if you pay attention to those moments of your mind leaving and kind of jumping to something else, when I start something out, let's say I'm, it's 9 o'clock, starting work, got my project in front of me and I'm getting going, my my mind continuously jumps to other things. And if I'm in an environment where there's a lot of distractions, it's extremely bad. Where it's almost every few seconds. I'm just like constantly moving to something else. And it's almost like, when you have a dog that's upset or anxious or something, like maybe the owner left and they're, you know, barking or something. If you put them in a room, put them in a crate with a towel over it or something like that, like you put them in this new environment and it takes a minute, but if my cat just burst through the door and screeched at me. Cool timing.
Into a
Just
new
talking about pets.
environment.
Yeah.
Right.
If you put an animal in this new environment, it takes a little while, but then the environment kind of soaks in and they calm down and they stop, reacting to whatever. That's what it feels like for me. If I put myself somewhere, it takes a little while for my mind to start settling in to where it can kind of go, okay, nobody's going to murder you. Everything around here is fine. And then I can start to get, it settles on the thing that I want it to settle on, but it takes a little while. And the environment that I'm in, the number of distractions and the frequency of those distractions, if it's too much to where I'm constantly getting prompted by things, sometimes it just does not happen. Where I am never able to really settle in and let my mind sit on something. I need the environment to be quiet enough, not necessarily literally quiet, but I need to see few enough distractions to where I just start to settle in. And if there's too many, it just doesn't happen.
So you said that you started figuring out what it is you want from your environment. Is getting rid of distractions the main goal, you think, or the main thing that you want out of your environment?
So here's what I want from an environment. The distraction thing obviously is important. Like you want to study for your physics class, you don't go to the club. It's too distracting.
Right.
So that one's simple. But there's more to it than that. You could sit.
I love that your cat is distracting you.
Yeah,
This is not a good podcast environment.
No, it's like she knew. Weirdly smart about that. Okay. Distraction free is not the only metric for an environment, because you could go sit in like a cold, dark room and work, and that's not great either. It won't be distracting, but it's also distressing, right? So in order for me to do well on a thing, on a task, I need to be relatively distraction free. A little bit is okay, but it can't be a lot. But I also need to be energized, alert, aroused.
No, I knew you'd say that. Yeah.
It's the word. It's the word. And so if you're somewhere that's dark and like that does not cause you to be very alert. And it, from a physiological perspective, you need adrenaline. You need those motivating, energy creating hormones. And it's more to it than hormones, but that's part of it, right? If you're half asleep, you aren't able to think at your best or even close to your best. You need to be alert and awake. And part of the reason why we're so obsessed with sleep and circadian rhythm is because if your circadian rhythm is really dialed in, then that gives you, at least in part, that hormonal boost at the right times of the day where you become very alert. In the same way we said last time, my cat starts to go nuts at 11. Why? I don't know. That's just the time where she goes insane and has tons of energy. Like, that's part of trying to get your circadian rhythm dialed in. But the environment that you're in determines your alertness level really strongly. If I'm in an empty room with nothing there, I just feel lethargic and not energized at all. But if I'm with other people, other human beings being around, like, raises your alertness quite a lot. In fact, this is very out of character for me, but I've started jogging recently, and I have my my watch that tracks my heart rate and pace and everything. It has like a little GPS thing. And so I'll have my pace. I'm jogging and I'm super slow. I mean, I'm like just learning. So my, mile pace is like 9:30, 9:45, something like that. Very slow. But I'll start passing people. Like I'll just see there'll be other people on the sidewalk or around me, or maybe there's a bunch of people and I got to kind of navigate through. And so I kind of like, oh, I got to go on the road and then go around the car and this and that. And then I'll look down and I'm going 8:15. My mile pace speeds up
Right.
by over a minute because the other people around me just cause me to become much more alert. So, point is, one of the major things that I want from an environment is that I want alertness. I want to feel very awake. And I won't say it again. I want to be energized. And that's a major part of the environment that you're in. The problem there is that it needs to be do you remember the episode we did on the two-factor theory of emotion?
Yes.
A long
With
time
the
ago.
adrenaline.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So just to recap, there was this experiment they did in the 50s, was it? Can't remember.
Sure.
So these ethically questionable scientists injected a bunch of people with adrenaline, and they did not tell them that they injected them with adrenaline, but they told them to expect different things. So for one group, they said, you're going to feel agitated. You're going to feel these effects of adrenaline. They didn't actually call it adrenaline because they were still lying to them about what they did to them, but they basically described the emotions that they're going to feel. And then there's another group where they didn't tell them anything. And there's another group where they told them, oh, your feet are going to itch or something stupid that was irrelevant, right? So they gave people adrenaline in the same dosage. They told them different things. So they created a different expectation in their mind. And then they put them in different environments. They put them in one where there was a test administrator that was really agitated and upset. And they looked to see how these people reacted. And then they put them in another room where there was this really happy, euphoric type test administrator, and they looked to see how those people responded. Basically, they gave them all adrenaline. They put them in different environments. They told them different things. And the result was, for some of them, they also became really agitated and upset. But others became euphoric and really happy. And others became really calm, depending on what they were expecting to feel and the environment that they were put in terms of what the person in front of them was doing. The point is, in a sense, like you can go anywhere and get alertness and energy, right? There's a lot of people around. There's, something happening that kind of wakes you up and makes you feel energized. But the way you perceive it is really critical for how that actually, or what that results in with you. So if you were somewhere where, I don't know, people were arguing and yelling, that would wake you up. You'd feel really alert, but you would likely feel frustrated and angry and agitated. And it's like the adrenaline that bubbles up inside of you is directed in a very bad way, where it leads to frustration and everything. But if you're somewhere where there's a lot of activity in the sense that it's waking you up, but you perceive it in this very calm, positive way. Like for me, if I'm in a coffee shop and there's a bunch of other people studying and drinking coffee and there's indistinct conversation happening, that wakes me up a lot, especially if it's bright and I'm having coffee. It's energizing, but it also creates this sense of comfort and calmness and control and all these different feelings that kind of direct that alertness in a very positive way. And it's a little hard to articulate exactly that, but it's like I need energy and alertness, but I have to perceive it in the right way for it to be useful to whatever it is I'm trying to direct it to. Did that all make sense?
Yes.
It's a bit of a fine line because to try to get an environment that is energizing but not distracting is tricky. Like you said, if you hear a conversation next to you, it pulls your attention away. But if you hear a bunch of conversations off in the distance where you can't quite make out the words, it creates this feeling of, there's people around here and they're talking and doing stuff. And that makes me feel awake and energized. And it's hard to get those things dialed in.
All right, so this is what's been happening to me. And it doesn't have so much to do with distractions. Here. I've been doing, and I think I've mentioned this like 3 times already, but I've been doing this little other challenge with my friend where we draw a new picture every day based on a classical piece of music.
Yes.
And the way that I kind of do that is it takes maybe 45 minutes, maybe 10 minutes of me listening to the song and just, closing my eyes and try to
you
figure
mean
out.
classical piece of music?
Yes. What did you
Okay,
think?
I thought you meant a classical piece of art.
No. So you listen to a classical piece of music, and then you just try to see what it makes you feel like, and then what that suggests pictorially, right? So, what type of images come to mind based on that feeling, which is very difficult and not easy to do.
I'm sure.
But this is the puzzle storm for art for me. This is my puzzle storm. And if you haven't listened to the Puzzle Storm episode, listen to the Puzzle Storm episode. Because I love that episode. And I love this idea.
Nobody else did, but we did.
Right. Anyway. So I listen to the song for about 10 minutes or so, and I just think about it, and I try to feel it, and I try to relax and just sort of focus on this thing. And then if I have an idea, I kind of think about that idea, try to figure out how I'm going to draw it. It takes a lot of problem solving, a lot of thinking, and you really have to be focused on it. After that, I set the timer for about 25 minutes, and I just start drawing it. And if I need to go a little bit longer, that's fine, but that's about the time frame. But in that whole 45-minute time frame, I have to be really relaxed and very focused and sort of free-form thinking and not worrying about other things. But I'm also doing this wake up at 5:30 in the morning every day for the month of February challenge. And that requires me to get to bed very early and make sure I go to bed early, because if I don't go to bed early, my next day is going to be awful and torturous. So what I've been doing is I do the classical challenge at night, and then I also try to go to bed on time at night. So when I get home from work, I have this list of like 10, 15 things I need to do. I need to take a shower, I need to eat dinner, I need to make sure my laundry's done, the dishes are done, whatever. And then I also have to do this classical thing. And what started happening was I would sit down to do the classical challenge and the drawing, and I'd be so like in a rush to try to get it over with so I can hurry up and get to bed so I don't ruin my day the next day. And I realized after a couple days where it just sort of, they were like magnets facing the wrong direction, right? So I have this one task that's pushing on the other task, and both of them require totally different states of mind. And they're just fighting each other, and both of them get ruined. If you do one right, the other one gets destroyed, and if you do the other one right, the other one gets ruined. So they were just pushing on each other. So I started thinking about tasks and environments, and I'm considering the end of the day a type of environment. The classical drawing challenge task is like this pale blue, right? You have to be calm and kind of slow down and really feel it and think about it. Whereas the evening rush of trying to get things done so I can go to sleep really quickly is like this intense orange, right? And you put them together and they just don't work. Like they just don't fit. So I started thinking, okay, well, where is an environment that's also a pale blue? Well, it's in the morning. I now, because I'm waking up early, I have a couple hours in the morning that are kind of like this pale blue relax time where that classical drawing challenge fits perfectly into. So I moved that to the morning, and I moved some of the other things that I was doing before that kind of match up with that rush feeling. And I matched the colors up, and they fit really well together because the task is now fitting the environment, and they support each other, and they just kind of like harmoniously go together, I guess. And it wasn't so much about distractions Well, I guess the environment was becoming the distraction, but I don't know. Does that sound
I
familiar
no,
to you?
I'm gonna have to save some of this for a future episode because it's a whole thing. But what you're saying, I think, is something that has been really at the forefront of my mind. It's been this big sort of revelation for me. And I think maybe we'll talk more about this in the how I got into Grandmaster episode. Um, so I moved my StarCraft playing into the morning, same as you, where I'll try to do this particular session of an hour, hour and a half, which hey, that's an ultradian cycle, right? We'll talk about that soon too.
You can talk about something now, though, right?
I'm trying, okay?
Okay.
It's like there's this idea, but it's got so many hooks of other major ideas kind of hanging
Yeah.
off of it. It's hard to get into all of it. Okay, I move my StarCraft playing into the morning, and I do this session. And the reason why I did that was because I had kind of a similar experience where I'm trying to play this game that I'm already very good at. Not to brag, maybe I'm very very good at it, but I'm trying to get better at it. And so I think as you start to get closer to the top or the not that I'm like pro level, but you know, as you get to the edge, you've really got to get everything right. You know, if you're just starting out and you just started playing a new game, you would get good at it pretty quickly because everything's new and you just learn stuff and you get better. But the problem I was having was I I need my alertness level to be very high. I need to feel very awake and just really in try hard mode of okay, let's do this. My eyes are wide and I'm ready to go. And I have well established this. If I am tired and lethargic or just I guess I'll play some games. It's late at night. Then I can play some games and it's fine, but I don't learn anything. I know that I haven't progressed. Like those moments where I get better is when I'm on. But the problem was that when you're very energized and you're very full of adrenaline and everything, the threshold for frustration is very easy to cross. And it sounds a little bit similar to what you're experiencing, where you're trying to do this thing, but you also when you're trying to go to bed and you're kind of rushed.
Right.
And what would happen was my alertness level would get too high and I start to make a lot of mistakes. It's like there's this performance curve of, okay, if I'm half asleep, I'm not playing well. And as I get more and more awake and more energized, I start to play better. But there's this little tipping point where I start to make a ton of mistakes. And it's like I start to get frantic and flail and I can't actually keep things under control.
Right.
And
That's exactly what was happening.
yeah,
It's that frantic panic. Like, I just
right.
want it over with, but also I need to do a good job. But yeah.
Yeah, and it that happens as well. There's a lot of things that can cause that, right? If you were going to go perform somewhere like a piano concert or something and you're super nervous, just that level of alertness can put you over the edge where you start doing terribly, right? Like we all understand that. You get too panicked, your performance falls apart. So part of it is just your alertness level needs to be basically as high as you can get it without being too high, because then it's over the top and you start to screw up. But also your fatigue and the frustration levels, those cause you to start making mistakes. And so for me, in the morning, as my alertness is starting to ramp up, again, circadian rhythm is a very big part of that, but just in the routine of it all, in the morning, I'm pretty clear-headed. I'm not frustrated yet, and my alertness starts to go up, and that's like the peak time of, okay, I can operate at a pretty high level, and I'm not frustrated yet, and so I can try to work that threshold of playing at my absolute best, just under the threshold of getting into flailing and frustration and like starting to degrade the performance. And so again, this isn't necessarily physical environment, but it's temporal environment of the day. I'm in a different
Yeah.
state of mind early in the day. I think this is really similar to what you're saying, in that for me at least, there's like, that is the time where I'm able to get the most, like the closest to my theoretical maximum of performance by having really high alertness, but also having a lot of control over that and not being frustrated and fatigued to where I can hit that line. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I don't know the exact situation for everything, or I haven't maybe I haven't thought too much about exact alertness times. I really have just been looking for time slots where I really feel like doing the task that I need to do and trying to match them up,
Yeah.
which I'm sure relates to alert times or alert levels and everything, but it becomes very clear when you think about it like that, or when you start noticing patterns. I realized when I was coming home from work, I mean, after driving forever and working all day, my my head feels like hot, like a fever, because it's just so full of so much stress
Yeah.
and stuff. And if I want to have any hope of doing something, that requires a lot of focus or a lot of clear-mindedness at the end of the day, forget it. Like, I
Yeah.
used to try to force that over and over and over again, and it just doesn't work no matter how hard I want it to. So now I'm trying to do things that slow me down at the end of the day, that help me decompress, whatever that means. It just sort of
Yeah.
slow down. It and try to make the environment fit the needs of me at the time. So in the morning I feel very clear-minded and very focused, and so I try to put my hardest, most uh, difficult
Hmm.
problem-solving tasks at the beginning of the day, and that's where I have the most patience too. So that's just kind of how I've been thinking about
Yeah.
it.
I I'm starting to have this kind of shift in my thinking of, to me, your circadian rhythm isn't just this thing that kind of happens in the background. It's not, oh, I gotta have my circadian rhythm figured out so I can sleep. It's a rhythm, and I'm starting to try and line up everything I do along that rhythm, where the my state of mind and my energy levels and everything are different at 10 a.m. than they are at 10 p.m. And it's
Right.
silly to try and, do something at, like I said, playing this game, trying to really progress and push the boundaries of my skills. I can't do that at 10 p.m. because I'm frustrated and tired, and I go over the threshold of, I start performing poorly, and it works against me needing to go to bed, so it interferes with my deep sleep and everything. Like the energy, the curves, I guess, of your stress hormones and your adrenaline and everything throughout the day. To me, it's one of the most useful things that I've started to do is just think about, how do I structure myself and everything I do around those curves. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just okay, I gotta make sure I see daylight and put the lights down low at night because I gotta, my circadian rhythm, that thing that happens in the background, that's gotta, you know, that's gotta get me to sleep at night. I'm starting to think more like the lioness who hunts at this time, because that's when they're the most alert, and like, that's the time to hunt, that's the time their body is ready, so that's when they do it.
Right.
Animals don't go, it's late, I'm tired, but I guess I better do this thing. They just do what their body wants them to do, and that's kind of how I think we all ought to be thinking a little bit. I mean, life gets in the way, it's hard to do everything
Right.
that way, but it's a powerful idea.
Well, it's interesting because you can also structure yourself to get used to needing or wanting to do that thing. Like
Yeah.
well, I mean, I guess we'll talk about this at another episode too, but the sleep thing, I mean, after waking up at the same time every day for 2 weeks, now I want to get up at that time, and I
Right.
feel like getting up at that time where I didn't before. And everything else, after having practiced this routine for a while, now that's what I want. And you train yourself to want these things. You train it
Yeah,
so your body needs these things.
it's like you have these two parties of, there's your body and your hormones, and that's all the way down to, I mean, sleep and melatonin, there's ghrelin for food and leptin, like all those things that happen in your body. And then there's also you, the more conscious being of I'm going to decide what I want to do now and what I want to do then. And they both kind of have to work together. Where you say, okay, body, you're going to have to be tired at midnight. And I'm going to make some choices that help line that up. But I also, we need to go to bed. I can't, I can't lay in bed for 3 hours trying to be calm. We got to kind of meet in the middle. And if you wake up at a certain time every morning, which we're starting to establish this month, at first it kind of sucks, but then it's like both sides of the equation get it. Where I'm getting up at 8:15 every morning. I know that doesn't sound that impressive compared to your 5:30, but I'm very happy with my choice there. But I'm choosing to get up at 8:15, and at first my body's like, "Nah, this isn't when we get up." But now it gets it. And so I'm choosing to wake up at 8:15, and my body is also choosing to wake up at 8:15, where it's, 8:14 and my eyes open and I start to feel awake.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't need to lay in bed because I'm awake now. Like the two things are starting to get it. They're starting to meet up.
So is the ultimate goal to always want to feel like doing the thing that you need to do?
As an ideal, yeah. I mean, that's not obviously that's not practical, but or not always possible. But I think that's the goal. That's what we
When I
want to try to do.
Right. I don't know. I think it is. It's the man, I'm gonna mess it up. What is it? The move like water, flow like water, be like water.
That's all.
Be like
water.
Bruce Lee.
Yeah, be like Bruce Lee.
When I see people that are really good at what they do, I mean, I don't know. A couple artists come to mind and musicians. They seem to enjoy every moment of the process. You don't see them getting like, God, I don't want to be an artist today. Art sucks. Like once a week. They don't do that. They seem to really love every part of it because it's just this sort of harmonious rhythm that they go through. And, oh, okay. This, in high school, I think I was a junior year, whatever. At the time, there was this stretch of like 2 years where I really wanted to be a film composer. It's laughable now because I didn't get very far in that pursuit, but I
could have.
I wanted to be like a Hans Zimmer, John Williams type, or Danny Elfman. So I went to this composer's music camp thing at the Frost School of Music in Miami. So I'm a junior in high school. I go off, stay with my grandparents. I'm totally independent for the first time in my life, right? And I go to this camp, and it's just 2 weeks, but and I'm alone. I didn't know anyone else that was there. And I start, learning about music and meeting all these new people. And all of a sudden, I'm totally immersed in this whole amazing, like wonderful world of music where every social interaction has to do with music. Every class you go to has to do with music. Like every conversation you have is, oh, what instrument do you play? What do you want to be when you go to college or grow up or whatever? And if you want to hang out, you play your music, you show each other, who your favorite composers are, whatever. Just everything was just so perfectly like harmonious. It was this wonderful little bubble of music. And I think about that environment, and it's a little bit different than what we're talking about, like a, whatever you call it, temporal environment. This was like a for real environment that I was in for 2 weeks, and it felt so healthy and so enriching. And I'm sure, if I had done that for years, maybe that would have faded a bit, and I'm probably idealizing, but I think about that a lot. Everyone was so on the same page of really wanting to learn everything they could. You were constantly being challenged to prove yourself in a way, where we would have composition like recitals. So you write a song and then you play it together. You write a song with a couple different parts and you have other people play it with you, and you play concerts and you have like a talent show, and It was just amazing because you couldn't hide. You had to show what you really did. I don't know. I was constantly being challenged and then just enriched by all these conversations, and then you just share knowledge. It was just amazing. And I think about that environment, and I want that for the type of stuff that I want to do all the time. I want to have conversations like this about, stuff I'm interested in, and I want to be challenged with it. I forget where I'm going with this, but that was just a really cool environment that I think, it was harmonious, I guess. It was just like all around, it was really good. Every single aspect of it just seemed to all fit together, and it was never like, oh, I want to quit music. Music sucks. Like, I was never trying to force anything. It was just pure joy. It was amazing.
I've heard some talk about this in the neuroscience world and stuff like that. How there's kind of this relationship between your internal state and your external state, where you have certain, I mean, even back to the two-factor theory of emotion thing, right? You get adrenaline, and that's part of your internal state. That's like what happens inside of you, and then the environment around you is in a major way part of what determines what that winds up feeling like for you, whether you feel euphoric and happy or frustrated and angry and whatever. There is this harmony, like you called it, or you want there to be, between what's happening with you and then how the environment around you is helping you see that and interpret that. Where if you feel this feeling of, man, I love this composer and I really want to do this thing, and then your environment around you is like, John Williams sucks. He just ripped off the planets, right, and he does the same thing every time, and you shouldn't be a composer.
Like, shut up. Just shut up. God. Ugh. Anyway, continue.
Right, just an hypothetical, right?
Right. God, just shut the... Anyway, I hate that.
I guess I'll do more bleeping for this episode. Part of what you feel inside of you kind of gets reflected or filtered or whatever off of your environment, and the environment around you very much determines how that winds up feeling to you, whether you feel really good about this desire, this whatever it is, this emotion that you have, and then like how that interacts with the environment around you. Anyway, I feel like we could go on this in a million different directions forever, but maybe let's leave it at this. Like, the environment around you is ridiculously important. I mean, it's more important than even we are giving it credit for. It shapes. I mean, there's theories out there. It gets into philosophy a little bit, but there's this notion that maybe we don't even really have free will and we're just the product of our environment. There are some people who think that literally the environment is the only thing that matters, and you aren't really even making decisions. You're just carried along the winds of the environment that you're in. I don't really buy that, but it's good to understand that that's one end of the thought spectrum, that it's that important, that maybe it's the only thing that matters.
Well, there is, I mean, the way we form, I don't want to use the word success, but the way we form what is successful is based on the environment that we've observed. And so, like, I have this clear idea of what is successful and that what I want to do with art or music or what I want to do with my life. And the only way that I've formed that is by looking at the environment in front of me. And so if that environment had been different, then my conception of what I want to do with my life would be different. And I am literally judging success or failure based off of what I've seen and what I've sort of pieced together from an environment. So yeah, I think it's extremely important. So I guess if you take anything away from this, the number one most important thing is just to take vitamin D.
Yeah. Take the magic pill and forget about the rest.
Just take vitamin D. Right.
Yeah, that kind of sums it up. No, seriously.
Sorry.
My kind of basic framework for environments is distraction level, energy level, like how that prompts your energy, and then that hard to define interpretation part of it, which I think is kind of what you're talking about with the music camp and everything. But you want a vibe of positive, this sounds really lame, positive energy, I guess. Like
That's too lame.
energy. Yeah, I
Try
can't
that
think of
again.
I can't think of a better way to say it. An environment of like
Something that lines
non-angry,
up with what you're trying to do, I guess.
yeah, like controlled productive energy. That's the best I can do.
It's a little better.
Well, I'll come up with something better later. That's for
But
that.
yeah, for me, it's does doing this task feel good? I mean, does it really feel good to be doing this task? If the answer is no, well, is there a time in my day or in my week or
Yeah.
some other place where if I did the task, it would feel good?
All right. So to recap a couple business items here, the challenge for the month is to choose a time to wake up and then wake up at that time. Daniel very stupidly chose 5:30. I chose a much more casual 8:15, which I'm very happy with. So that's the
You
month's
still screwed
challenge.
that up at the beginning, but
Yeah, it took a couple days. All right, no judgment. I'm there now. I'm feeling good. So that's the challenge for the month. We're also lining up something new for next month. I also decided to restart the pull-up challenge. So if you want to get onto the daily habit of doing pull-ups, you can jump onto that Google sheet. We also opened up support channels through through YouTube and Anchor. So if you want to support the podcast, that is an option now. We're kind of soft rollout for that, and for the people who have already done that without us even mentioning it, you're awesome. Thank you very much. You know who you are. But we'll be back next week. Do we have any challenge for the following week or for this upcoming week?
no. I mean, if you aren't doing the wake up at the same time every day challenge, just do it for 1 week. I mean,
Yeah,
if
how
you
that
want.
gonna be?
Yeah, it's all, and then we'll be talking about that next week, and then next week we'll announce what the challenge is for March.
Right. I'm excited about.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. We'll see you all next week.